Hi, and welcome to Intermediate Algebra for this semester. I am Professor Fort. I made this video to explain how the course works. I'll take you through a walk in Canvas and we'll go through the syllabus, kind of like we would on the first day of class if we were an in-person class, except obviously we're online. So it also gives you an opportunity to see a face, make a connection that there is somebody on the other end of the computer. Oftentimes we're taking asynchronous online courses like this and we don't always know what the person on the other end looks like. So here I am. So I'll share my screen with you in just a second, and then we'll take a walk through the course. I'll also have videos for each of the sections, and you won't see my face, but you'll see the whiteboard and everything else. But at the beginning of the semester, I wanted to give you a chance to do that, and then at some point while you're on campus, stop in my office, and I'll get to see your face too. Hi, so now you can see my screen. If you've made it into this video, chances are you've already made it past the screen. But this is where your Canvas courses lie. I'm still in the process of setting up my spring classes, so not everything is here yet. But here's our spring 2025 Intermediate Algebra class. You open it up, and all the modules are sitting here. They're all collapsible, and they go by week. So at the very beginning, I had just the course information up. This is the course information. That's the first week, second week. So you can collapse them all, and then when you're ready to use them, you just click on the little buttons, and they open up. All right, so the first module in here is the course information. There's a copy of the syllabus. This is the video from last semester, but once I get done recording this video, I'll pop it up for the new semester. I have some general course information. Some of this will be covered, actually most of this will be covered in the video, but for certain things like I'll mention that you can bookmark the Canvas site and go in there directly, and so here's the link, and so once you're in, you might want to bookmark that. Don't tell anybody, but if you bookmark that Canvas site and you go in there directly, you don't have to go through all that authentication stuff that you have to go through to get into the email system and into Lions Den. You can go into that raritanval.instructure.com site directly, and I have it bookmarked too. Look, right there it is, Canvas RVCC. It puts me right in there. The information about my math lab is in there. Best way to communicate is through the Canvas email. So some of the stuff that we're covering in the video is covered there too, but it's nice to have it in writing. The discussion guideline, the work that you do for this course, the homework will be online through my math lab, but every once in a while you're looking for some extra problems to do if you need some help with a concept. So that problem list will give you a list of problems from each section that can help out. There's a link to the RV Tutoring Center, the withdrawal and refund schedule, and if you're going to drop the class or if you're thinking about it, and you want to know when the last day is, it gives you all the information, and then some information about signing up for my labs. All right, so all that is in that very first course information module. So why don't we take a look at the syllabus? I'm going to go back and forth. I'll drop this in, and then I'll pull it back out as we find different things in the syllabus to go through. So the course is up there. My office is in the West Building, room 320. If you go all the way to the end of the hall in the top floor, you'll walk right into an office, and mine is all the way down the left. So I have some office hours, they call them student hours also. Monday from 11 to 1, Tuesdays and Thursdays I have a class at 11, so from 10 to 10:50. Some days we'll do it by appointment. Now on those Monday hours, if you want to meet on Zoom, just let me know and I'll send you a link so that you can be part of those hours as well. And that also lets me know that I have students online as well as students in person. There are some times we can meet by appointment. Wednesdays tends to be a better day, but there is a little bit of flexibility there too. Best way to contact me is to use the Canvas email tool. Sometimes I lose contact with my other RV email. Actually, my phone died the end of last semester, and I had no way to go through the authentication process, so I had no way to access my Raritan Valley email. But I could always get into Canvas. So you can see people use my Canvas email. Look, there's 4 messages sitting there that came in today because I'm teaching a winter session course, and so I'm getting questions about the test that's coming up tomorrow. So how do you use the Canvas email system? Let me show you, and I'll pull some of my screens out so that you don't see emails from students that are up there. So I'll do the best I can to separate them. So when you click on that button, you'll see that it gives you the messages on one side, and then it gives you the a space to write the message on the other side. So if you hit compose, it pulls up a screen where you can compose a message. So you pick the course. We would pick Spring 2025 Intermediate Algebra, and then you can type who you want to send it to, you put the subject, and then hit send. And then when I send you a response, you'll get it back through Canvas also. And so it helps me to also keep track of who's sending information from what classes, and especially at the beginning of the semester where I don't know everybody's name yet, it helps me to organize, emails and responses. So the Canvas email system, best way to get in contact with me. I've mentioned the student hours. There's also something on the side here called RVCC Student Resources. We used to have these gigantic syllabi with just pages and pages of policies and procedures, and sometimes they would get outdated because I would copy from a previous semester and not realize things had changed. So they finally put everything in one central spot. So these are things that are general to the college, not necessarily specific to my class. Some of these things will be helpful. Some of them you may need once or twice, but not every day. So there's, for example, information on advising and transfer services. How do you find that? Mental health counseling. We have a food pantry on campus. If you have disability accommodations, here's how you get information from the Center for Accessibility and Inclusive Education. There's information about the tutoring center here. So all of that information is all listed here. Attendance policies, what to do for a delayed opening, right? For an online class, a delayed opening really doesn't impact much, except that if the testing center, if you're taking a test in the testing center, that may make a difference. But other than that, there's not much for this class. Withdrawal from classes, code of conduct, and so forth. So this is all, the RV policies all listed in one spot there, easy to find. And then this way you can reference them as you need them. All right, back into our course. And there's a link to it. The syllabi now have to include the department chair, so there's our math and computer science department chair. You don't need a paper copy of the textbook. Everything that you need textbook-wise is available on through Canvas and MyMathLab. You do have to purchase the MyMathLab access. So even if you're retaking the course like you took in previous semester and now you're retaking it, you got to pay for it anew. So you can either get it through the Raritan Valley bookstore, or when you go on to Pearson, you can purchase it directly from Pearson. If you've never used this book before, there's also a 2-week free trial. And so when you go to set it up, look down the bottom, there should be a button to click this as I want a 2-week trial. And this way you can get everything synced up and start the homework, and then it gives you another couple of weeks before you have to purchase it. All right, so it says a couple of reminders. Don't purchase a generic access code because it might not work for the course. Every once in a while somebody goes online, oh, cheap version of MyMathLab. Yeah, well, you might find out that somebody's already used it and you have no way of knowing, so don't do that. There is no MyMathLab course ID. Okay, back in the day, we used to have course IDs, and some people still do it that way. A lot of us now link it up directly with Canvas, so there is no MyMathLab ID. It goes in directly through Canvas. So at some point, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to go on the side here where it says Access Pearson, and you click on that, and yours will say something like Getting Started because you haven't accessed the course yet. And then if you have a Pearson ID, you log in with the Pearson ID. If not, you create your own ID, and then you'll get into the course that way. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is simply to come up to one of the modules and click on one of the homework assignments. And when you click on one of the homework assignments, it will bring you to that page where you log in. Okay, once you've logged in from my course, it will automatically know what textbook to give you, what set of assignments to give you. And then once you link it up once, you don't have to do it again. From there on in, it knows that the two things are linked together. All right, but it's important to go in through Canvas first. Go in through Canvas, click on that Access Pearson, and then that's how you get into the course. All right, what do we cover in this course? A lot of algebra stuff. So the idea is that probably some of this you already know and some of this is new to you. Probably a lot of this you've seen. How much you've mastered depends on the background that you're coming into this class with. All right, there are certain things like factoring that tends to be something tricky for a lot of students and they need a lot of practice with. On the other hand, a lot of people come in already knowing how to graph lines or graphing inequalities. Same thing with functions. You might have seen function notation, but not have been real familiar with it. So you will find times in the course where things are flying along and you're like, why are we doing this? I already know this. And then there'll be other times that you'll feel completely the opposite and say, oh, all right, I haven't seen this stuff before. And that's where you know you've got to concentrate your efforts there. So it'll be a little bit of a back and forth depending on how much you come in with. All right, there's information about course placement. You can challenge your initial placement by retaking the placement test up to 2 times, but it's got to be done during the first week of class. Now, if you want to read through the student learning outcomes, these are the types of things we're going to do. Linear and quadratic equation, a lot of factoring, equations of lines, systems of equations, rational and radical equations, expressions, integer and rational exponents, simplifying radicals, and solving application problems. So normally if you were to take this course on campus, you'd spend 4 hours a week on campus in like lectures, and then you'd spend 2 hours for each of those hours off campus studying, doing homework, office hours, things like that. So you would expect to spend about 12 hours a week altogether. Now, It could be watching the videos, reviewing notes, working on problems. There's going to be discussions to post. So all of those count towards those 12 hours. Nobody's tracking, but if you're not doing as well in the course and you're not spending that much time, that could be why. You're expected to log in. This is daily. Every couple of days is probably reasonable, but you shouldn't be logging in only once a week because you'll miss things. And then also you're trying to do a whole week's worth of work at one time, and that's tough. That doesn't give you the opportunity to ask questions also. If you're logging in and an assignment's due on Sunday and you're logging in to start it on Sunday afternoon, if you email me on Sunday afternoon, I might be in front of my computer or I might not. So give it some time. How are grades taken in this class? A lot of this is based on tests. So there's 4 tests in the class. Each test equal weight, so that's 45% of your grade. The online My Math Lab homework is 15%. There's discussions and then a final exam. So in this course, which is considered what they call a developmental course, you have to get at least a 70% to pass, right? So there's A's, B's, and C's. There's nothing in between. So you need at least a 50 on the final, 70 overall in the class to pass. The tests are taken on campus in the testing center, and so you'll see the dates as we go through. Each test has 2 different dates that you could take it on. It's paper tests in the testing center. Bring a scientific calculator and a couple of pencils. If there's some reason that you're going to miss a test, like let's say you have a mandatory conference at work and that whole week you're going to be out, or 3 of those days you're going to be gone, that's something you would know about in advance. You would let me know and we could see what we could do to work around it. And the same thing, I've had people in the National Guard before take online classes and say, hey, that's the week that I'm out for training. What do I do? And we work out a plan so that they can make it up. Don't just skip a test, because that's going to be hard to get a makeup test going for that. There's discussions, and the way that the discussions work in a math class are probably different from what you're used to, like in an English class or something like that. When you go through the discussions, and you'll see these linked in your modules, like let's say I pick the chapter 4 discussion. What you're going to do is you're going to answer these questions. Now, you could type them all out. There's math type and equation editors that are built into Canvas, or take a piece of paper, work them out in paper, take a picture of the paper and just post it as a JPEG file. But you are going to need to show your work and explain. The idea is if you post this by let's say Thursday of the week, if it's due on a Sunday, if you post it on Thursday, then you'll be able to see other people's responses. They'll be able to see yours, and then you can comment on each other's responses that, hey, you might want to take a look at question number 2 again. I got a different answer. And so then you have the ability to go back and respond to your own post with an update before I grade it. You can post the initial submission up until Sunday at 11:59, but then you lose the opportunity to have other people take a look at your work. The other thing too is it's set up so that you won't see anything until you post something. So if you go to post something and it always looks like the discussion's empty, it's just because it's waiting for you to post something. Once you post it, you'll be able to see everything else. So that's how the discussions are done. So usually we say post by Thursday night. This way that gives you some time to look around at other people's responses and then check back and see if anybody's posted something on your account. Final exam is during final exam week in the testing center. One thing I've said on here is don't just post a half-done solution or a blank solution so you can see everybody else's responses. You're not going to get credit for that. Also, don't ask ChatGPT to make your response. I'm pretty good at figuring out which ones are done by ChatGPT and which ones are done by humans, and the ChatGPT ones are not usually done correctly. So it's always best to be honest and do your own work. So here's how I set up the course. We start classes on a Wednesday this year, right? So we start on the 22nd of January. So the first week, quote unquote week, is actually about a week and a half, because I'm trying to get the weeks to start on a Monday and end on a Sunday, which gives you the weekend then to catch up on work. And so the first week is all of chapter 3 because it's actually more than a week. All right, so you'll see the topics we cover in one section. You'll see what's due on the other side, right? And so if you want to print out, look, it's just 2 pages. If you want to print that out, and then you can sort of mark off line by line, make sure everything's done. Okay, and then you'll have an idea of when the tests are, right? The first test is the 17th or 18th in the testing center. Then there's spring break in the middle. The second test is just after we come back from spring break. Third one is in the middle of April. And the fourth one is right at the beginning of May. And then the final exam, I gave you anywhere from the 8th to the 13th to take that final exam. And again, in the testing center. So how is this course set up? Let's take a look at how this course is set up. So I open up the first module, right, week 1 plus as I'm calling it, and I usually post a little bit of an overview. The first week I have a lot to say, all right, and I try to go through it line by line as to what it is that you're going to do on that first week. But then after that, then I might just write a few notes each week as to, things to look for, reminders, things that are upcoming. And sometimes I'll post things like, if you're graphing, you need some graph paper, here's some graph grids. All right, underneath that, then I generally have the PowerPoints and the videos. So the PowerPoint and the videos go together. In other words, I made the PowerPoint, then I made the videos. And so the PowerPoints are the problems and the concepts and the notes, but they don't have the solutions worked out. The reason I did that is so that you could maybe print out the PowerPoints and watch the videos and work through the problems as if we were doing this in class. Right? It's up to you if you want to do it that way or not, but by leaving the solutions out of the PowerPoints, that gives you the opportunity to work through them as we're working in class, or even to try it, pause the video, and then come back later and see if you did it correctly, and if not, what the issue was, right? So each of those videos are linked. I mean, they're available on YouTube if you wanted to they're all I put them all in a playlist, so you can go bookmark the playlist if you want, but they're also linked here, okay? Then down the bottom is the homework. So if I go, let's say, to the homework from section 3.1, right? Click on the homework from section 3.1. What it's going to do is it's going to open Access Pearson, right? So it says Open Access Pearson. It opens it. And look what appears, the homework, right? Question 1, 2, 3, 4. And so then when you open it, then the problem should appear and you complete the problem, okay? When it's done, then my math lab will save the grade. And after the homework is due, then I'll go in and I'll pull the grades in from my math lab to Canvas. You won't see the grades in Canvas right away. I will pull them in as soon as they're done, and then you'll be able to keep track of them in your grade book. Right. Then down the bottom, after all the My Math Lab homework, then you'll see the discussion. So the first discussion is just an introduction. That should be easy. And then the discussion on Chapter 3. So yeah, it looks like a lot for the first week, but like I said, it's actually a week and a half, and a lot of the material is review. If you want to know how many problems are in each section, look, on the bottom, it says the due date and then the number of points. The number of points is the number of problems. Now, as you know, if you've used My Math Lab before, some of the problems have multiple parts, so it's not exactly a gauge of how long it's going to take you, and some of the problems are quick, but at least gives you an idea. If you've never used My Math Lab before, I put an optional orientation in there. I will not be transferring those grades over, because if you've already used My Math Lab for something else, then you know how to use it. There's no sense making you go through and do an extra set of assignments just because. So I'm not going to pull those grades in. If you are looking for the book, how do you get to the book? Well, on the side where it says Access Pearson, click on Access Pearson, and it does take a couple of steps to get there. And then we open Access Pearson, and then I don't know if you're going to get that screen or not. I do, because that's how I pull your grades in, but you may not. All right, so here's the home page. Again, yours might look a little bit different because you're not the instructor. On the left side here, it says eText. Okay, so you open up eText, you open up again, and it does take a couple of seconds for the eText to open. But what you come up with is your textbook, right? In a format that looks like your textbook. And so the first chapter we cover is Chapter 3. So you click on those three little vertical bars, and here's Chapter 3, Graphing Equations. There's the opener. Here's Chapter 3, Section 1, Introduction to Graphing. So if you're looking through my videos and you're like, hey, I'd like to see somebody else solve the problem, right? Sometimes seeing a second person solve the problem, it might click for you. Look through the textbook, right? They have all the examples worked out and everything. So you can do that. If you're looking for a specific page number, there's review exercises at the end if you want some additional review problems beyond what I'm including. You can do that. So that's how you get to the textbook. All right, going back to Canvas over here. What else is interesting that's on Canvas? So the first week has a lot of new material, some of it review stuff, a couple of discussions. You notice the due dates are always in the bottom so that you can follow along. In week number 2, then we have material from Chapter 4. I put the homework assignments here that are due on the 9th. There's one discussion. By the time you start getting into week 3, then we start getting ready for the first test. Okay, so here's the review for the first test, and here's the review key. So the review is something I made up to review for the first intermediate algebra test, right? It's got 9 pages of 8 pages of problems, a page of topics that are going to be on the test, and then all kinds of problems that I put up there for you. All right. The other thing is me working out all the problems. All right. So if you do a couple of pages from the review and then you want to check your answers, then pull up the review key and see how you did. Now, you're going to take the test in the testing center. So on week 4, you're going to take the test in the testing center. So notice what's up at the top. It says, click here to book your appointment at the RVCC testing center. I would advise doing that a few days in advance. Don't wait until the morning of. I mean, you can. You can even go there as a walk-in and they'll take you, but it helps them if they have some idea as to how many people are coming in that day. So when you click it, look, it says take the test. Schedule your appointment through this link. Get 2 hours. Bring a photo ID to the test. So yes, they will check your photo ID when you go in there. Click on that link and it takes you to the testing center. Now, when you see this, you'll get to know what date I'm doing this on. Actually, I'm doing this on Sunday. But here we are on Monday. So if you want to book a test for Monday, January 13th, you go over here and you notice that each of these things are roughly 5-minute increments. 9:10, 9:15, 9:20. I don't know what happened to the times in between. Maybe they booked up 9:30 already. So if you click on a time, it'll only give you a 5-minute appointment. Now, the test is 2 hours. These appointments are just for you to check in. So you're going to fill in your first name, last name, email. Have you read the testing center's policies? I hope so. Have you scheduled enough time? I hope so. Again, like if the test closes at 6, don't schedule it for 4:30 in the afternoon because you're not going to have enough time to take the test, and they will take it back from you at 6 o'clock because they do have to go home at some point. What exam are you testing for? Okay, you're going to pick faculty exam, and then it says indicate your instructor's last name. Well, here, my last name is Forte. It's 5 letters long, and so if you put my name in there, I'm not going to do that because that would be weird. They'll at least know who you're testing for. Okay, and like I said, those 5-minute appointments are just for you to get in there and checked in, for them to, have you put your bags on one side or whatever and find you a seat and then get you started on the test. But the test is actually 2 hours. But I would book in advance, especially as we get closer to the middle of the semester and then final exams. The testing center gets pretty full. So letting them know who's coming is helpful. And then as the semester goes on, it just sort of a rinse and repeat for the remainder of the material. I did put an empty module in there for spring break. There's nothing assigned during spring break because it's spring break. When we get to the last week, remember that we said the first week was a week and a half long? Well, the last week is half a week long. But the only thing we have to do in that last little week is begin preparing for the final exam. I'll update this with the spring 25 materials for you. But again, there'll be a final exam review, practice problems, and then solution sheets as well for you to check your answers. And then the final exam, again, you're going to take in person in the testing center. It's got to be done by the time they close on that Tuesday, May 13th. And then I will grade them and post the grades, and we'll be done. What else is interesting here? A couple of quick things before we wrap this up. On the left side, there's all kinds of different buttons. Some of them you'll see, some of them you won't. The people section just literally tells you who else is in the class. Maybe you'll know somebody. Click on it. You may have a good study group. Announcements. I will post announcements kind of regularly in a course like this. Some will just remind you of something that's upcoming. Sometimes I might have information to tell you or a change in a schedule or something. So you can download the Canvas student app and set it up so that you get a push notification on your phone whenever I post an announcement. You can also have a copy sent to your email if that's easier for you too, because I realize you're not always logged into Canvas, but that's another way to get those announcements too. Brightwave is just a link in case you purchased your access through the campus bookstore. Brightwave is used to link up the campus bookstore's code with Pearson. Grades. Oh yeah, you might want to know what your grades are. Nobody has a grade right now, right? Because I'm still recording this video. But this is my end of it. If you were to check it, like there's actually a test student here. So look, I bet you the test student hasn't done anything all semester. All right, so right now there's no grades, but as we start filling things in, then you'll start seeing different grades here as they go along. Okay. And my goal is to, when you take those paper tests, then to just scan them in and post them on Canvas for you privately in the grade section so that you'll be able to see it, right? So when you click on grades, you'll see grades obviously for yourself. The syllabus has sort of a nice summary of the course. I put the syllabus up in the top there, like the paper syllabus, but then also it lists things due. So you notice things tend to come due in chunks. So one on Monday the 27th, then a whole bunch of stuff on Sunday the 2nd, then a whole bunch of things on Sunday the 9th, Sunday the 16th. So it organizes it for you day by day so that you can see what's due on what day. I think that's about it. A couple of last minute things. I would advise you every couple of days log into Canvas, do some of the work, keep up on things. ask questions, plan ahead. We have a tutoring center on campus. I have office hours on campus. I can sometimes do appointments and meetings depending, how many other appointments I have that week. But keep up on things so that you're not cramming when the time for the test comes. Get familiar with where my office is. Stop by end of the hall, West 320, and even if it's just a wave and say, hey, I'm in your intermediate algebra class and I made it all the way to the end of that 25-minute video. Don't I get some brownie points for this semester? And then at least we'll put a name and a face with each other and you'll know where to go if you have questions. So I think that's it. Thanks for being part of this intermediate algebra class and best of luck in this spring semester.